everyone. How are you all today? I hope you are doing exceptionally well. I hope you are having a fantastic day. So today we are going to continue our discussion this week on soap making and understanding the soap making process. On Tuesday, well, let me back up. I am Shelly Moise, owner of Noelle's Garden. Today we're going to pick up and we're going to talk about 3 oils today, 3 hard oils. They are lard, palm, and tallow. So I'm going to give 2 disclaimers right up front. If you are a staunch vegan who kind of does not tolerate the talk of animal fats and things like that, then this may not be the broadcast for you, because we're going to talk about the benefits of using tallow and lard in soap today. So if that is a bit too much for you, then we'll pick up tomorrow when we talk about oils and butters in soap. But today we're going to talk about lard, tallow, and palm. The second disclaimer is that, again, we're going to talk about the benefits of these fats in soap. I am not here to persuade you into using these particular fats, because all 3 of them are controversial, and we're going to talk about why they're controversial. So I'm not here to persuade you or dissuade you either way. I just want to talk about them and their benefits in soap making. So the first one we're going to talk about is lard. It's inky, the inky name, which we talked about yesterday, what inky names are. The inky term is the International Nomenclature of Cosmetic Ingredients, and that's just the name that's recognized internationally. So the inky name for lard in soap is sodium lardate, and its saponification value is 0.141, okay? So let's talk about lard. What lard is? Lard is the rendered fat from the pig. It is not necessarily at least when we discuss it in soap making, it is not just the fat that you see when you go to the butcher or that you have left over. It is actually the rendered fat, which means that you are going to cook that fat. You're going to scrape off like the trimmings and the things that you don't want, and you're going to get just the pure white rendered fat from that lard. You're going to just get the lard. You can buy lard from producers. In fact, there are 3 different grades of lard, and the highest grade being the leaf lard, which is taken from the fat surrounding the kidneys and the inside of the loin. It is white in color, it is creamy, and this is what it looks like. Because of its very high, I'm going to refer to my notes. Leaf lard, yes, leaf lard. I'm going to refer to my notes because I want to, again, make sure that I'm delivering the information the way that I want to deliver it. So lard has a bad reputation. It really does. It has a worse reputation than it actually deserves. And it has the bad reputation really for 3 reasons. The first reason is because lard is generally associated with foods that we regard to not be good for us. So because lard has such a high smoke point, you can really heat it up before it'll get too smoky. Because it has such a high smoke point, it is very well used for frying. And we believe fried food is not good for us. So there's a point against lard. Lard is, because it is so creamy and so thick, Lard is excellent for baking. It's excellent for pie crust and really delicate things like that. So because again, we regard baking and sugary sweets as not being good against lard. As I was doing some reading, I found a book that was published quite a few years ago by an author called Upton Sinclair. And the name of the book was called The Jungle. And in this book, men fell into vats, huge, large vats, where that product in that vat was sold as lard. So many years ago, lard began to get a really, really bad reputation because even though that book was fictional, it was completely made up, people associated lard with men, the men that fell into those vats. So there was another tick against lard. But was there really some sinister, yeah, but was there really some sinister plot, some horrible, awful plan to just ruin the reputation of lard? Initially, I just kind of thought that that was just all in our minds. But as I began to research, there really was a sinister plot against lard. What had happened was, back in the 1800s, cottonseed oil was used quite a bit, but it was unstable really for soap making, for candle making, for eating. It went rancid quickly. And because it was a liquid oil, it really couldn't be used for much. So in the early 1900s, like around 1911 or so, hydrogenation was invented. And hydrogenation allowed liquid oils to be made into solid oils. Well, what did that mean? That means that now cottonseed oil could be used as a form in which to cook food. It could be used for preparation. Procter & Gamble at that time was a company that primarily was supported by soap making and candle making. But when cottonseed oil began its hydration process, they bought out the rights to that copyrighted formula, the rights to that formula, and they began making and creating the product Crisco. Crisco stands for crystallized cottonseed oil. And Procter & Gamble created this very aggressive campaign that targeted lard as horrible, 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 and instead buy our cottonseed vegetable product. And it was very aggressive. It was aggressive to a point where they handed out cookbooks when you purchased cottonseed oil, and the cookbooks had all of their recipes with lard or any other type of oil removed and replaced by Crisco. This was a very, very aggressive campaign that they ran for many years. It started in 1911, that they ran for many years, and they ran it really to push their product to the forefront against lard, because lard was the competition. That was what was used for baking. It was what was used for frying. Really, because they were now the competition for lard, they really pushed this aggressive campaign which said that lard was terrible for us. It was bad for us and that we should not use it. Instead, we should use this cottonseed oil, which at the time wasn't really all that great, because because cottonseed was not yet really thought of as a food type ingredient. Certainly cotton wasn't thought of as a food type ingredient. So cotton nor cotton seeds were treated in the market as far as how you use pesticides on cotton, right? Because we wear cotton. So it was not treated as it was harvested as a food type ingredient. So the seed could have virtually any kind of pesticide in it that you would use on any other fabric. It really wasn't healthier than lard was. It was just that Crisco had a very aggressive and a very successful, as a matter of fact, a very successful campaign with pushing their product at the expense of really denouncing and giving lard such a bad reputation. And because they did it for so long, it started at 1911. And when you look at how many products have the name Crisco now, it really, even though they don't come out and say lard is bad for you, they still have the tagline, all vegetable shortening, which in the back of your mind kind of reconfirms that lard is bad, that if it's an animal fat, because ours is all vegetable. So that must mean that there's something wrong with a product that is not all vegetable. So even though in our minds we may say, well, lard is bad for you, when you really go back into the history and you think about why we believe lard to be bad for us, it's really kind of interesting. It's interesting to know why it came about, how it came about, and that it came about solely for the purpose of making money for the brand Crisco. It actually had nothing to do with being healthy. Okay, so that's our background on lard. And I have to explain all of that because using lard in soap is an excellent choice. Lard makes a very, very good bar of soap. Lard, it's low allergenic, keeping in line with the way that we did our other oils. Low is low allergenic. You don't find too many people that say, oh, I'm allergic to lard. Not the way that you find people that say, I'm allergic to latex, so I can't use shea butter. Or I'm allergic to nut oils. You really don't find many people that say, oh, I'm allergic to lard. Because my glasses are slipping up, I'm gonna bring my notebook up. You don't find many people that are allergic to it. It is reasonably available. So you can find lard in a container package if you want it that way, or you can usually go to your local deli and get already rendered lard. And here's another thing too, kind of a way that you can kind of ask yourself, is something clean or not? Because there are a lot of clean foods that are not necessarily healthy. But when we talk about wanting to use clean food and eat whole foods, you ask yourself, what can I produce in my home? Can I produce cottonseed in my home? No, I cannot. Cottonseed is highly processed. Cottonseed oil is highly processed. In fact, Crisco doesn't even use cottonseed oil in that Crisco anymore, even though Crisco stands for crystallized cottonseed oil. Now it's hydrogenated palm oil and some other vegetable oils. But the question is, can I do this in my home? Well, one benefit of lard is that you actually can render lard in your home, and I have rendered lard in my home before. So is it available? Why it is reasonably available. You can get it, like I said, at the store in the section where they sell other fats and oils, or you can usually get it from a market or a deli type of a place that would sell meats. A lot of time they will also sell lard, or you can render it down yourself. It is inexpensive. Lard is not expensive at all. It has a shelf life of 1 year. Lard is very mild and gentle. It is not an abrasive fat at all. It's really mild and gentle. It has a medium conditioning. So it's not a super high conditioning like you would expect from olive oil, but it is definitely not coconut oil. Coconut oil is very harsh on the skin. You can check yesterday and watch yesterday's scope when we talked about coconut oil in depth. But coconut oil is not, in soap making, coconut oil is not gentle on your skin. While lard is, it's reasonably conditioning on your skin. It supports the lather of coconut oil. So lard in itself does not provide lather. If you make a bar that is 100% lard, it is not going to be a very well lathering bar, but it does support and stabilize the lather that is produced from coconut oil. It can be used up to 100% in a bar, though it is generally used around 30–35%. It has a mild smell to it. It's not going to knock you off your feet. It does have, when it's rendered properly, lard has a very mild smell to it. It is white in color, which means it'll produce a white bar of soap, which means it is easy to color. You don't have to fight against any yellowing or any browning or greening. It's a very easy color to soap with. So all in all, when it comes to lard, it's really unfortunate that lard has such a bad reputation, because lard is a very, very well balanced fat for soaping. It really gives soap makers the things that we look for in soap. It gives us that hard bar. It's conditioning. It is white in color, making it easy to do, really nice colors. It does not accelerate your soap. It is really like a perfect fat for soaping. But because lard has such a bad reputation, a lot of times it's a killer on your label appeal. And I can attest to that, because as a soaper, when I would do my markets, when people would read the ingredients and see lard, it was always a negative reaction. The only time I would get a positive reaction would be if the person was a baker, or they grew up in a farming type community where they believed in using the entire animal and not wasting scraps. So that's what I have for you on lard. Next, we're going to move over to tallow. The inky name for tallow is sodium tallowate. Its saponification value is 0.143. The saponification value is the point at which it is the amount of milligrams of lye that it takes to saponify 1 gram of oil. That's what the saponification value is. So tallow is the rendered animal fat of any animal, pretty much, except lard, except pig. Lard is the only animal fat that has its own name. Tallow refers to the fat of any animal, really, except for pig. However, when I refer to tallow, I am referring to beef tallow. That is what I use. So this is my beef tallow. This tallow here is also white in color. However, tallow is not always white in color. As I'm going to show, this is tallow from the same company, but it's a bit yellower. I don't know if you can see it, if that color difference comes in well, but it's a bit yellower. So while your lard is very white, your tallow can be anywhere between a very white to kind of a buttery yellow. And again, we're talking about beef tallow. So tallow also has different grades the same way lard does, but the highest grade, again, is going to be that leaf tallow that comes from the same place, the fat around the kidneys and the loin. So tallow is also low allergenic. It is solid at room temperature, which makes it good for producing a hard bar soap. Tallow is not widely available. I order my tallow from a soap making company, and there are companies that do sell tallow, but I have never walked into a grocery store and found tallow. So it is not widely available. It is reasonably inexpensive depending on how much you order. Certainly lard is more available, so it is less expensive, while tallow, because it is not widely available, you generally have some sort of shipping costs associated with it, unless you live in an area where you can get beef fat and then render the tallow yourself. It also has a shelf life of 1 year. It is mild, but it is not as mild as lard is. It has good conditioning, but not as conditioning as lard is, though it does produce a harder bar than lard does. It has slightly heavier lather than lard does because tallow is very creamy. It produces a very creamy lather, while some oils will produce kind of a very silky feeling lather, where your lather is kind of fluffy and very light. Tallow produces a slightly heavier lather that is more creamy in nature. You can soak with tallow up to 100%, the same as lard, up to 100% in a bar. Though again, you generally want to stick to around the 30 or 35% area. Tallow boosts lather. On its own, it does not make a great lathering bar, but when it is combined with coconut oil, it will help to support the lather that coconut oil provides, and it will boost that lather and stabilize that lather. Tallow has a mild smell, but it is not smelly enough that it will interfere with the fragrance that you put on your soap. It is not difficult to color. It produces a white bar, so it is not difficult to color. The only thing I would really say about tallow, though, is to research the tallow that you purchase prior to buying it. Because, again, I have 2 tallows here made by the same company, and they are under the same SKU number. But if you were actually here in person, you could really see that there's a very different color between these 2 tallows. So I would research prior to buying your tallow for soap making, or even frying, because tallow is excellent for frying the same way lard is. It has a very high smoke point. So if you're trying to get away from whatever kind of oil that you use to fry and go to a more cleaner oil for frying, again, lard, even though it has its bad reputation, lard and tallow are both excellent for it. But we're not here to talk about cooking, so let's get back to food. So those are our lard and our tallow. The last oil we're going to talk about today is palm oil. Tuesday, when we had our first one, I mentioned that both tallow and palm oil are controversial. I kind of mentioned that in passing and said that we would discuss it later. But they are. Palm oil, lard and tallow for obvious reasons because they're animal fats. But palm oil as well is very, very controversial. Palm oil, its inky name, the international nomenclature name is sodium palmate. So as you're looking at bars out in the store, when you see sodium tallowate, we know that that's tallow. If you see sodium lardate, you know that that's lard. If you see sodium palmate, you know that that is the salt from palm oil. It is obtained from the fruit, from the pulp of the palm fruit, not the kernel of the palm fruit. The kernel actually produces a very different oil that has very different effects than palm. Palm oil and palm kernel oil are 2 very different oils. Palm oil is a little bit different from other oils, and I'll show it to you here. I get mine from a company called Brambleberry. And that's what it looks like. It's very light in color, that same buttery yellow, but it also produces a white bar of soap. So palm oil is different from other oils in that when it solidifies, when it's solid, its fatty chain acids separate to a degree, meaning making it such that you have to melt your entire bag of palm oil and then pour it and measure it, because I guess the benefits of it, they kind of separate out. And if you don't melt it down first, then you get kind of half your chain of fatty acids. You get kind of half your fatty acid makeup of palm oil. You have to melt it down, mix it really well, and then pour it and measure it. Okay, so what is the controversy behind palm oil? Well, there is a lot of really horrible, awful practices behind the palm oil industry. And those practices include deforestation of rainforests in order to plant fields for palm trees. It includes really horrible treatment of the animals that live in those forests. It includes the awful treatment a lot of times of people that live in or near those forests, indigenous people. It includes exploiting those people, just a lot of not treating the indigenous people well, not treating the animals well, not even respecting the land itself. But there are sustainable palm oil efforts out there, and those sustainable palm oil efforts involve a movement where, again, the people are not exploited. They do not use child labor, nor do they use forced labor, which a lot of times happens in poorer countries. They tried, with sustainable palm, they tried to reduce the methane gas output that is in the waterways there. And they tried to use better planting procedures. But a lot of people argue, even when you use sustainable palm oil, are those efforts enough, right? Because if you relocate animals, you're still kind of disrupting the way that they live. If you relocate people for the clearing of their forests, you still disrupt the way that they live, and you still infringe on their rights to live where they live. So that's the controversy behind palm oil. Again, my job is not to persuade you either way to feel any type of way. It is more to just inform you about oil choices. That's what we're talking about today. So there is, when we talk about palm oil in the soap making industry, there is a huge controversy about whether or not you use palm oil, and if you do use palm oil, do you use sustainable palm oil? Now, for more information, I did want to put that in. For more information about sustainable palm oil, you can go to the site rspo.org, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, and you can read on their certifications and what's necessary to have the label sustainable palm oil. So, palm oil benefits, how they react in soap. Palm oil is reasonably allergenic. You do find people that have allergies to palm oil, but it's not anywhere near what you would find to cocoa butter or shea butter or even avocado oil. Palm oil is solid at room temperature. I'll show it to you again. So it's firm. It's a nice, trying to get rid of that glare. It's a nice, firm, thick oil. So it is solid at room temperature. And being a solid oil at room temperature means that it'll provide us a nice hard bar of soap. It is reasonably available. You can find palm oil, though I wouldn't really use it for soaping, but you can find palm oil and other shortening. Crisco has palm oil in it. So it's reasonably easy to find if you are an ingredient reader. However, for soap making, the best place to probably buy your palm oil is going to be from a soap making store or soap making company where you can get a good amount of palm oil for a better price. So I'll say it's reasonably available. It is reasonably inexpensive. It's not as inexpensive as your lard. It's definitely not that inexpensive, but it's not as expensive as some more exotic oils are. You can definitely get a good amount of palm oil for your money if you go to a soap making company that specializes in giving you those kind of oils. It has a shelf life of 1 year. It is mild and gentle, but not as mild and gentle as lard would be. It's medium conditioning. It provides a creamy lather, and just like lard and tallow, it doesn't provide a very good lather on its own, but it does boost and support the lather of coconut oil. So it's similar to lard and tallow in that way. You can use it up to 100% and get a bar of soap. It will produce a bar of soap up to 100%, and it'll be a firm bar of soap, but it just doesn't lather very well on its own. Excuse me. So palm oil is generally used around 30% or so, 30-35%. It has a mild smell, a mild kind of earthy smell to it. Because it is yellow in nature, when you are initially soaping with your melted palm, it may look like it's difficult to color. However, because palm oil does produce a white bar, it is relatively easy to color. It is easy to scent. So all in all, palm oil, sustainable palm oil, again, is an excellent choice for soaping. It is usually the go-to hard oil for people who soap without animal fats, but it is a questionable ingredient. It is a controversial ingredient. So you definitely want to do your research when using palm oil to see if your company is a sustainable palm oil company, and then what are they doing? You know, do they just have the title, or do they really try their best to prevent unethical practices with the companies that they kind of contract out to? It's definitely worth looking into. This is the reason that I use my Brambleberry palm oil, because they do use sustainable oil. Okay, do you guys have any questions for me regarding these 3 fats today? I hope that it's been educational. I hope that you at least learned something. Thank you very much. I hope that you guys here on the Periscope Live, and even my replay viewers, I hope that it was informational for you. Again, I am Shelly Moise. I am the owner of Noelle's Garden, Bath and Body. My webpage is noellesgarden.com, Noelles Garden, GARDEN.com. Do take a stop by, visit our shop, browse and look and see if you find anything you like, but do sign up for our mailing list so we can keep in touch. I can find out what kind of things you like, what your favorite ingredients are, what kind of hobbies you have. So do sign up for our mailing list. If you have a bit of time, check us out on Facebook. Leave us a comment, leave us a like. I'll see you guys later. In fact, I'll see you tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Tomorrow we will be discussing butters. So tomorrow we will discuss mango butter, cocoa butter, and shea butter. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye now.